Let's talk about the Expo Router and the new file-based routing for React Native applications. So everything we talk about here is still a bit experimental. I will go through all the new cool things that we can use with the Expo Router for our React Native applications. However, things might change in a few weeks or in a few months. So keep that in mind if something is not working yet. We're just gonna get started with a new Expo app. So npx create Expo app latest, I'm gonna just call this Galactic app, and we're gonna start the example with router. So probably that's gonna change in the future. Once we're in that project, I will also touch the tsconfig because I actually want to use my application with TypeScript, and then simply follow this up by running npx expo, because this will ask you for, it looks like you're trying to use TypeScript, do you want to install this, and then just hit yes, and then your React Native application is good and ready to work with TypeScript. So I'm going to open the iOS simulator. We're probably also going to take a look at this on the web. That might make sense because then we can actually see easily the path of our application. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So let me put this to the side and then we can dive into this. So I'm going to press W and also open our Galactic app right here. We're going to switch between that and the simulator a bit. So, however, welcome to Expo. Start by creating a file in the app directory, which we actually don't have. So let's get started and create a new app directory. And this is where all the magic is gonna happen. We now just define files in that app directory and they will become a path of our application. So, as you know, every application usually begins with an index file. And within that index file, I'm going to say React Native functional export component, and I'm going to call this the login page. So after hitting save, we immediately see that at index, we are now serving this page, and here as well, it's covering the whole page. Now you might say, oh, this looks horrible. Yeah, it does, because we don't really have any kind of styling yet, but we're gonna get to that when we talk about layouts. For now, let's just quickly make our text centered on this screen, and then we can add more routes to our application. So usually we also have something like a register. So let's add the register tsx, React Native functional export, register page. And actually I made a typo here. Actually, we can now already go to this if we check out the web preview. So on the web, I should be able exactly to go to my register page. On a mobile screen, it's a bit harder, but of course I could do this somehow as well. But anyway, let's try and do this navigation from our login page now. So on the login page, I can now add a link. So I can add a link using the Expo Router package, and in that link I can set the href to something like register. I'm gonna close this, there we go. I can open register. So let's see, I can click this and I'm on the register page. Same for the web, I can click this, I'm on the register page. Now, if you want to have something like a pressable or a button inside of that link, which you usually want to have because it looks pretty boring, or you would have to style this, you could use something like a pressable and then use a text element and say create account. Now, if we do that, what we want to do as well, here we hit save. How do I actually get back now here? This might be a problem. Let's hit reload. If we want to use this correctly, now it's not working anymore. So what we need to do in the case we have a component in the link is we just add as child in here, and then it will use the pressable and apply the link to that pressable, and we see we can finally navigate again. And here we actually got a hover effect for that create account button. Now, of course, this is not everything. Where can we go next? We're probably on our register page. We can make sure that this looks a bit better. So let me just quickly change this to a simple layout. So we also see this in the middle. Now, what you usually see in native applications is a navigation bar, and we don't have a navigation bar yet. For those cases, you can add layouts. So underscore layout.tsx. And within that layout, we now define our layout. And what we usually use for these situations is the React navigation package. So we do it pretty much exactly like that. React Native functional export. I'm just gonna call this the stack layout. So here we go, we got the stack layout, and you know that usually for a stack layout you return something like a stack. And do we have to? I think we actually don't have to supply anything. Let's try this. Here we go. Index now has a header. We can go to register and we automatically got the back. And same for native application. We just created the layout which wrapped our whole application in this stack layout. And of course you can change how you want to have your stack appear. So if you bring in some screen options, you might now have something like a darkish color, whatever you want. Header tint would be white and the font style here would be bold. So this is something you can do. However, maybe I also don't want to show my index page here, which actually looks pretty horrible. And also I would actually like to have this show as like login and not index, which is not really user friendly. In all those cases, you can directly affect your stack layout here in the layout. So if I want to say for my index page, I would use the name index and set the options to header title login header shown actually false. So if I change this to true, we would see the login up here. And this would now route back to a login, or actually it routes the same, but it would show up as login. Now I'm hiding this because usually on the login page you don't really have a header, but here we do have it, and we have the back button as login. Now let's do something else, which is using a modal, because that's actually pretty easy as well. Let's just create a new file. I'm going to call this modal.tsx, and within the modal I'm just going to drop the usual code. Now, on the web, we could actually already, once again, navigate to that page, because every file in here simply becomes a route. And by the way, you can check out all your routes by just going to /_sitemap. Oh no, now I removed it. Great, Simon. Here we go, sitemap, and it shows up all the available routes. We got the index, we got the modal, and we got the register. And this is pretty nice to test out all the stuff of your application. However, I want to navigate to my modal as an actual modal, and therefore what I'm going to do is I'm going to define another stack screen in here. So there we go, stack.screen. On our register page, I want to include a button. So on the register page, yeah, I can say something like create account for the header. That's totally cool. So then it shows up as create account. However, what I want to add is a button. So I'm using header right. And then I'm going to add a button. So button, oops, not from React Native types. There we go, button. We could have closed that immediately, I think. And then we go, title, come on, title open. And on press, we're going to do something. So on press, we're going to use the router to push our new modal page. And for that, we can simply, in every page or layout, inject the router using the hook. So use router from Expo Router. And then on press, we can use it directly, just like this, router push modal. Not navigate, it's actually a push. So if you don't use push, it won't work. Now let's see. I can now push my modal page. However, that's not really what I wanted. I wanted to have a modal page. So how do I get this to display as a modal? Well, we're gonna just add another stack in here. So everything by default already becomes a route, but if you add more information for a specific path, then you can affect that. So in my case, what I want to do is for my modal, I want to have as the options here, I want to have the presentation set to, and now cool thing happens. We got nice code completion here. So we can try out all of these. Card is pretty cool. They have all different use cases, like having something transparent in the background or opening, but what we want to see is a modal. So let's go back, create account. I'm going to probably just hit reload once just to make sure everything works. No route named home exists in. That is very true because the name is modal. The name is modal. There we go. And voila. And we have a nice modal page. So once again, just by setting the presentation mode, we now got the modal here, but it is part of our navigation. If we check this out now, still the same navigation in here. And of course, inside of the modal, we can now inject once again a button to the header, so we can actually close it. So let's quickly do that. We can use the header right, yeah, but probably I want to have header left actually. So let's say header left. Of course, you could use something like an icon in there. And then for back action, we don't really need any path. So, oops, there we go already. Oh, that was already the action. So here we go, close, open, works. And with that, you have already the basic outside area of an application. Now, something you might want to have as well is navigation in the case of an unmatched route. So for that, you can actually create a new file which already uses a syntax we're going to see later, which is basically catching everything else. The syntax here is unmatched .tsx. And in the unmatched, you can actually use the unmatched from Expo Router. So now if you hit something, it will show up like this: unmatched route, page could not be found, go back, and it will go back to your default index route. And of course, you could have a different kind of unmatched or 404 route in case you build your React Native application for the web as well. Now, this is cool for the general navigation of an outside area, as you've seen, the register, the modal stuff. Now, what happens if we want to go into an inside area and have a tab bar in there? This makes things a bit more interesting, a bit more complicated, but let's go through it. What we're going to do is, usually you would now create a new folder like app, and then within app, you could have a new file, index.tsx, and I'm going to call this React Native functional. I'm just going to call this how do I want to call this actually? Yeah, probably let's call it tabs. And then on our index page, I'm going to add another button so we can navigate to the inside area. So that means we need another link here. Do we just want to make this a boring link? Yeah, I think we're gonna do. Probably want to also handle this from code, just because. Do you want to handle this from code, or? Yeah, probably. Let's do this. Would be a good example. So usually you want to have something like handle press or handle login, and then once again you can use the router. Use router. Thanks. Please add the import. No, that was not the shortcut for adding the import. That's it. And then we're gonna have a function to handle the press event on our login. And what we're gonna do in the function is we're gonna call the router dot. Do we get code completion today? Let's see. Usually we should get. I don't know if Copilot is killing my. Is Copilot killing my code completion? Router dot. Okay, it should normally show up what we got in here, but there's actually a replace in here. And I'm gonna replace my current route, and what I wanna do is I wanna go to home. In fact, I wanna go to _home. Home, there we go. So now I log in, I'm unmatched route, page could not be found, home. Let's see. Oh yeah, I called this app. Glorious idea. Let's go back and hit reload. And there we go, boom, we are on app/index. However, on the web, this means if I go to login, I would always have app here. And for all kinds of routing now, we would have app/home or something. If you don't want this, so if you don't want to have a component, path component appear in the path, what we can do is we can switch this out and add brackets around this. Now, what this will do is it will first of all mess up our routing, because if we go to the sitemap, what will the sitemap say? Yes, we got this page, it kinda exists, but we actually can't really navigate there, as it's pretty much the same index file. So we will need some way to handle this. Let's see how we can fix this. First of all, I wanna add more files. So let's add 2 files. I'm gonna call this one home.tsx because we actually don't really have the tabs. And this one will be the home page. We can center the text again, but nothing fancy. And then we want to pretty much make a copy of this, or I'm going to add a new page. I'm going to call this profile.tsx. So those will be the 2 tabs of our page. And again, On this page, I'm gonna just add another link so we can then go back to our initial page. Of course, you could handle this if you wanna like delete the tokens and stuff, but for simplicity, we will now just use it like that. So now I can actually go to app/home and I can go to profile. And as you can see, no more app appears in the header because this is now a group. And you can actually get really fancy. I don't know if this is gonna really stay until the final version, but you can have like app, test, and then you can reach those files under different different paths. So it can get really strange. You can check out the the Expo Router documentation on those where is it, like root layout or nesting navigators. It should be somewhere on their groups. I can't find it right now. Gonna check that out again. So for now, we just want to make our tab navigation work. So that means from here, clicking login should take us to the tabs layout, which we don't have. So what we're going to do, we're going to first of all rename this. I'm going to rename this to tabs because app is kind of confusing. So I'm going to call this tabs. That also means in the index, I need to make sure that I actually go to tabs, I think, otherwise it probably won't work. No, in fact, what we want to do is we need to navigate to home, since we don't really have to go to tabs, right? Yeah, we should go to home, I think. That should work. Let's see. Yeah, that brings us to the home page. So now we're on this home page, and in that new folder of that new group, we can again define a new layout. So let's do this. Not a new folder, just a new layout. Layout.tsx, and in the new layout.tsx we're gonna define tabs. So let me bring in some code for this. Here we go. This would define our tabs. Actually, it doesn't really matter if we have a export default or a different case. So we do have the general tabs from Expo Router, pretty much the same setup like we used before with the stack layout, and then we define the different screens. We have a home screen, and we have a profile screen. And we can also, again, use the options to set the tab bar label or to header title, and also the icon. Really nothing fancy and nothing really special to this routing. However, if we now check this out, I'm gonna probably use this one here now. If I now go to login, we see we do have list, we do have account, and we do have another generic index page. So this is now a problem because that index page, I think we can actually get rid of that. Let's see. If I get rid of that, we only have 2 tabs. However, we have the usual problem. If you nest stack navigations, you're gonna get into trouble. So we want to disable the header for tabs group. And we can do this in our layout. Now, this is the path where I struggled when I gave this a try. I went into this here and tried to disable it, and it's a bit confusing in which layout you need to work. So sometimes you just need to play around with this a bit. But in this case, the tabs is part of our stack layout here. So we're going to our stack layout, like the outside layout, and I'm just gonna add another stack.screen. And now I'm targeting the tabs, and I'm targeting the tabs group directly. So I can really have the exact name just like this in here. And then I'm gonna set the options and set the options to header shown false. Now, if I bring this up here, I should probably close this, and voila. There we go. We have our nice inside area, and I can even go back, log in, and we see no more header. And this is already, sorry, the general setup that, like, this covers pretty much 70% of applications. You have an outside area, you have a registration, you probably have a modal, and then you have an inside area. And from here on, you can just get going and add your different files in here, different groups in here. It doesn't really matter. It can be groups or it could be something else. Because if we check out the web, we see that this now, so here we go, slash is login, and then we have home, and then we have profile. You could have that under tabs. So if I remove the brackets here, it would be under /tabs/profile, if that makes your life easier. It's just important to understand how this new concept of the React Native Expo Router works. And under sitemap, again, we can now nicely see our inside pages here, and we still see all the outside pages. Now let's dive a bit deeper into creating a nested layout. So as we can see, we are now in this tabs group, but what if I also want to have another stack layout in here? So therefore, let's create a new folder, and I'm going to call this list. So this will actually become a new part of our tabs layout. You need to be careful with that. So if I create a new index.tsx in here, React Native functional export, and I'm going to call this the list page. This will immediately show up right here as a new page of our tab bar. So we're gonna have to find later ways to change this. For now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna change our list page to include a few links to sub-elements. So from that list page, I wanna go to news 1 or news 2 or news 3, which means we do have both nested layout and dynamic routes. Because I don't wanna specify it for these pages, I will just create a file id.tsx with those brackets, and in here I'm now able to catch the information from the page. So I'm going to call this the news details page, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to extract the ID from use search params. It was pretty much exactly like it did before, and I could now easily display my text in here just like this, my news ID. Let's see, I go to list, I go to news 1. Ooh, I still have an unmatched route. So now it becomes a bit more challenging to figure out what we did wrong. Also, if you check out the routing, you would see that this new index page shows up as a 4th tab. So this means we need to be careful. And how do we change this? We need to create another layout in here. So every time that shows up a page and it looks kind of strange to you, usually that means you should have another layout. So in our list folder, I'm now adding another layout. I'm going to call this the news layout. And what I do is I will just add a simple stack again, which defines for the index page the header. It doesn't actually matter what I really do in here. The most important part is having that layout and saying that this is here the index page. Because now that page, the list/index page, is not part of the parent tabs layout anymore. And I should actually, I'm still not 100% able to do it, but we probably get to that. So let's add another entry for our list page. List ID. Did I make any other mistake? I hope I didn't. But we definitely need to include our new list page is a regular tab. So let's add another tab in here. Another tabs.screen. So this will be the list. So it will look into the list folder for an index.tsx or ts or js. And then I'm going to give it the tab label news and show a different kind of button. So then it matches our tab bar and what we created before. So we can see this. Actually, why is there a size difference at the top? I'm 100% sure about that difference. That looks kind of strange, and it still looks like a regular header. Let's try this first of all. Okay, we still have the unmatched route, which means I either haven't saved my files or I made a mistake in a different place. So let's check this out. Can we check our sitemap? So within the sitemap, we should be able to go to /list/ID. Are we doing this from our index page? We go to list, we go to ID. We usually cool. And we can directly access it. I probably just need to reload my application. Let's log out and reload it. And let's try again. Log in, news. There we go. And it now finally shows up the ID up here. And actually, if you go to the ID page here, oops, I didn't want to do that. If you go to the ID page and you want to affect something like the header here, what you can do is you can just throw into your view again a definition for that screen. So even at that point, you can also use effect or use layout effect to grab the data that was passed to that page, and then it would show up nicely. So news 2 shows as news 2, and news 3 shows the ID 3 in the top. And with that, we have another layout inside of the news page. which is a stack layout and displays all our information. Now, why is this cool? First of all, we now have a dynamic route that we can navigate to. So if somebody on the web shares this page because there's a cool news article on that page, we could now directly share this link and it would open up like this on the web, and you can make your call to the API and retrieve your data or whatnot. But what's cool about this as well is that we now got deep linking basically out of the box. So there's a documentation section here about deep linking. And on that section, what I found is that I just closed my previous window. That was a great idea. So I'm gonna go back and open my, hello, please give me my file back. Localhost, there we go. So here we go. We wanna now directly open this page as a deep link, because this is like the end game, opening a deep link inside your React Native application, and it is so unbelievable easy. So what we can do is we can use a package called URI scheme, which is mentioned, I think, in the documentation for deep linking. Let's check it out. So I think somewhere at the bottom, Expo linking, yeah, we don't need to go through any of that. Testing with npx URI scheme. So npx URI scheme, open your deep link and then iOS or Android. And that's exactly what we want to try out now. So in my case, I want to say npx URI scheme open, and I want to open Expo at, what is my, I hope this is still the one I used before. So Expo, double thing here. So your IP follows after Expo, of course. And then we usually have that port. So we check it out here. I have that port. I want to go to a list and some ID. You need to pass in, I think, 2 dashes here. And then I'm going to give it the platform. So what I want to open is this. I'm just going to make sure that I'm logged out. And then I'm going to try this. Okay, then it's probably just 1 dash. So let's see. Cannot get tabs list. Okay, great example. But apparently we're having the right. Did I call this? Did I use the same setup? Probably in my case, tabs does not even exist anymore because I now use a group. So it just becomes list/9000. And voila, it's still not working. Great, always works. Probably now with a double slash. That looks, yes, here we go. We're on news page 9000. And that means I have directly opened this with a deep link. Now, this is of course just trying this out, but you can imagine you could have some kind of push notification and would just open your application. So let's try this one more time because it's just so cool. It opens my Expo application. Oh, that is gonna be hard for it, but it still works. It still works because we have the file-based routing now definition, which makes enabling deep links a ton easier. So we don't only have the benefit of general file-based routing, which I think is really interesting with React Native, but we also do get the benefit of using deep links a lot easier. And I've seen Evan talk about this on Twitter before, that they're working on a few other things to make that even better, including better TypeScript support for this new kind of setup. So definitely check it out. Take everything that we've said here with a grain of salt because it might change still. In a few cases, there's actually a comment here that things will definitely change, probably related to groups as well. I'm not exactly sure in which case it was, but it is pretty cool, and you can already get started like this. So we had the login page, we had the modal page and the simple stack navigation, the inside tab, which is in a group, and then another subfolder, which has a dynamic route to capture the ID. And with the unmatch, we've seen how we can catch everything else that is not matching anything. So if you use the 3 dots in a folder, it would catch all the other routes that were not caught with any of the other files. And again, if something looks strange, if you have a fourth tab or a child tab that shouldn't be displayed, make sure you add another layout file to the group or to the folder, which usually solves the problem. So if you enjoyed this video, you can also find the source code linked below the video on galaxies.dev, my online platform for everyone interested in the latest cutting edge web development technologies. Go check it out. And definitely also hit the like button and stay subscribed for more React Native videos and other cross-platform technology videos coming over the next time. So, hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about the new React Native file-based routing. I will hopefully catch you in the next video. So, until then, happy coding, Simon.